Hi, guys. Happy Monday. Welcome back to another episode of Soulful Living with Megs. As always, it is so great to have you here back for a moment of connection with me. Hi, my beautiful friends. Happy Monday. How are we doing? Good morning. If you're listening to this first thing Monday morning, appreciate you so much. I hope that you guys had a fantastic weekend. I hope that the weather is finally starting to feel like summer because what the heck is going on? I feel like I'm going to be renewed again because it's been a fantastic weekend thus far in Vancouver. And I just hope wherever you're listening to this that you're feeling the warmth and you're soaking up all of the sun and getting into all of the summer activities and all the fun things like that. I am very excited to discuss today's topic today because it's something I've thought about for quite some time, but I wanted to sit on the feelings that I had about it first until I guess I felt more inspired or ready enough to discuss it. And so hopefully I'm ready to discuss this and it all makes sense. But I think this week in particular brought along a lot of emotions in terms of like work things and personal things that I've been kind of feeling throughout the week. I think this topic today has been very prevalent in my personal life, and so something that I felt was fitting to discuss with all of you today, of course, in hopes that it makes some of you, if not all of you, feel seen and heard if you are resonant with this idea, but also just to shed light on this topic for those of you who may not be familiar. I do think it can be helpful, especially for the people that you have in your life if they do experience something similar to me. Firstly, before we get into it, I want to update you on a few things, but it is, so warm right now, guys. I am sweating, but for some reason I refuse to close all the blinds. And you know why? I think it's just because we don't get a lot of light in Vancouver, you know what I mean? And so when we do, I'm trying to soak up the sun as much as I can, but I'm in a corner unit, and so the sun is quite literally everywhere, and I am sweating as I'm sitting here talking to you, so I'll probably have to close the blinds in a bit just to create a bit more coolness in my apartment. There's no AC, so it's a bit much right now. But anyway, after this, I'm going to go suntan on the balcony, get my meal prep done, actually sit outside and hopefully tan on the beach with sunscreen because it is going to be like 29 degrees today, which is craziness. But my past week, honestly, I've been exhausted. If I'm being real with you, I've been trying to, because the warm weather is like starting to come out, the last half of this week was definitely warmer weather-wise, and so I wanted to make the most of it after work. I was playing volleyball with some new friends that I made and all this and that, because you guys know I'm in a volleyball league now, but we stayed out till, I don't know, 10:30. I didn't get home till super late, and by the time I fell asleep, it's been tiring. And I also took like 2 6:15 a.m. workout classes this week before work, and while that was incredible and I felt so good doing it, like I felt super refreshed, the fact that I got my workout done, I was able to get errands done at lunch. It was great, but also I was tired because I'm waking up early and then working out even though I'm like not awake. Anyway, so it's been a week. I'm also, something I'll talk about later on in a few episodes from here, something, I've been dealing with in terms of work and trying to navigate some things. It's been challenging for sure, but I know that, we always get through it. And I talked to you guys about the fact that some days are harder than others, but it doesn't mean you have a difficult life. And I just know that all the tools that I have in my toolkit will get me through whatever hardship comes across my plate that day or that week. And so it definitely doesn't last, but it has felt heavy. And I think with that heaviness, kind of the things that I was consuming online were very much proving that, wow, you are feeling very strongly about these things. Your sensitivity is very much coming out in these moments. And it just made me reflect and think like how powerful my sensitivity can be, and something that I wanted to share with you guys. But before we dive into that, I wanted to share a couple of the things that made me feel something this week. And one of that being was I rewatched my one of my dance performances from when I was in the company a few years ago. And normally when I rewatch myself dance, I look at myself with a very critical eye, and I know that's a very common experience for dancers or anyone in the industry in terms of dance, singing, anything to do with, I think, your physical appearance and the way that you are presenting yourself to the world. I think people look at themselves with a very critical and almost judgmental eye, to the point where I don't necessarily enjoy myself, or back in the day, I didn't really like watching myself dance because I knew I would critique every little thing. And it was less of an enjoyment and a treat to say, like, wow, I can move that way, or I can express myself in a very creative way. It was more so, oh, I should have fixed that line. My arm could have been straighter. Why did my face look like that? I wish my feet had a better arch. I wish I was more flexible in this area. Whatever it is, it's very critical commentary that comes from me and in my head, and I don't necessarily praise myself for the things that I do unless I'm absolutely happy with it. But are we ever fully satisfied? Because it's never going to be perfect. So I always looked at it in that way, even though I love this art form. You guys know that. But for some reason, when I watched this show, I don't know if it was because I was with somebody watching it with me and I wanted to be, I was excited to show them and say, this is what I love to do, and this is my like art form and my passion that, not everybody gets to see. People who meet me now, for example, they don't really see me in the thick of it, or people who aren't dancers don't really know what it's like or don't necessarily experience it as much as other dancers do. But it could have been also the fact that I've taken a long break from dance and that I'm still on this hiatus. When I rewatched the show, I had a way different experience than what I did the last time I watched the show. And I actually was very appreciative with how I moved my body. And I was moved by a lot of the pieces. Or, when I watched myself, I was like, wow, that was actually a very pretty line that I did. And for some reason, I looked at myself with more of appreciation, and the fact that my body is so strong and I can express myself in this way that not everybody can. And it's something that has brought me a lot of joy in my life and a lot of peace. And yeah, it was something that I felt very moved by. Even though I know exactly how these dances are, I lived them. I kind of remember some of them, which is funny that your muscle memory knows after all these years however many dances you can remember. But it was a different experience and something that I very much enjoyed. And I think that also could mean that I want to get back into dance soon. I hope so. I think that that's the path that it's going on, and it kind of made me want to get up and also move my body freely and do some improv, and also just feel that feeling of being up there again. And I know I'll get to it and be able to be, whether it's on stage or in a classroom again, like more. I know when I get to that point, it'll be fully for me. But I was just very proud of myself that I wasn't as self-critical, and I was more so experiencing it as a treat and just the joy that I felt from watching it. And also maybe it was because I've been watching shows recently and like seeing my friends dance and seeing other creative art pieces. I'm like, wow, this is so cool that like humans can do that. That people are so talented in their own way, that they have all these strengths and they can showcase them and create feeling for others. I loved it, and I wanted to share that with you. I also recently watched a podcast from Tana Mojo, which, if you guys know OG Tana, she's definitely evolved. And something that I've always appreciated about Tana is that she's very expressive with her words, and she's super relatable with things that she shares. And she has a very intellectual brain. I've always appreciated that about her. And while I don't necessarily, she doesn't live this lifestyle now, but back in the day, she was a very party girl, didn't really follow the rules. She was just the choices that she made were very opposite to how I lived my life and just how I live my life now. But I've always appreciated how intellectual her brain is, and the experiences she shares with others, I think, is relatable and also can shed light on a lot of areas that maybe, at least for me, like I don't fully understand because I like don't live that world, or I didn't live the world that she lived. And anyway, so, but like if you remember OG Tana, like her story times, her rants, I loved it. I ate every bit of that up, and it was very enjoyable for me to watch. But she has a new podcast now. It's called Brand Safe, I believe, and I will tag it in the show notes. But she is definitely on her healing journey, and I can see that even in the way she physically looks, is she's, leaning more into her natural beauty, and she chose sobriety, which was, I think, a very positive choice for her, and sharing her journey with that, and the fact that, she's so much more clear-minded without drinking, and the alcoholism caused XYZ, and, a lot of it was the trauma that she's dealt with throughout her life, and her childhood and her upbringing was very challenging and also like sad at the same time. I think it very much shaped how she acted and her behavior in her early 20s. But her and I are the same age, and so again, I like listening to these stories from her because I think while I didn't live that life, I think it's a very cool thing to understand about others, because it just goes to show that not everybody lives the same life, obviously, and you kind of never really know what people are going through, especially in an online world. And yeah, it was just a good reminder to not necessarily hold a lot of judgment for others. But she, in this particular episode, I've only watched one full episode from this podcast of hers, but she was opening up about her estranged mother and the fact that her mother was dying, and is like dying right now as she was recording this. And it was a fairly recent episode, I believe. And I'll try to tag that one as well if I remember, but I'll definitely tag the title of the podcast and a link to it on YouTube. But I was on the treadmill listening to it, and I was also listening to it in the morning while getting ready for work. And I think with me feeling so sensitive this past week, everything that she was saying, I was like in tears by. And it was so beautiful, yet sad and heartbreaking at the same time, about the fact that, she was a child and she didn't know any better. And also she has parents who are, these caregivers in her life are supposed to take care of her, and they're supposed to support her and raise her, but she was kind of forced to grow up on her own. She was forced to placate both sides of this emotional state that their parents were in, that her parents were in, not knowing, how dad was going to act today, how mom was going to be. And she was raising all three of them, including herself. And that's just not a fair role as a child to play and to be in, when you are supposed to be loved unconditionally by the people that are supposed to care for you and build you up. So it was very sad, but also I commend her for sharing that with us. And I know that it touched a lot of people who have grown up in a similar way. And while I did not grow up that way, I also have experienced my own hardships in life, and being, an only child in a scenario where my parents were divorced and separated, and I don't remember a time that they were together. So I've only known, at least from my conscious memory as a child, what it's like to be in a house that's divided, what it's like to feel maybe not the most secure love, if that makes sense. And we don't have to get into the specifics of me, but what I'm saying is just that, like, everyone has experienced something hard in their life, and everyone is learning, because this is everybody's first time in the world. And it also reminded me of how grateful I am for my parents for raising me the way that they did, in the best way that they could and knew how. And while I probably would have done different things, I at least know from my experience what I'm going to bring into my child's life if I ever become a mother, or I have a partner in the future. Like, I know how I want to build a family and the love that I want to receive because of what I didn't get. I think that everyone kind of grows from that. And Tana has definitely learned, and she's experienced, what she doesn't want to be. And she knew from a very young age, I never want to be like my parents. And she didn't. She acted accordingly. And while it was a hard life and a hard upbringing and difficult, maybe not the best choices, she also knows that, like, without any of that happening, without any of the choices she made in her late teens, early 20s, she would not be the woman that she is now. She would not be able to share this story or write a book, because I guess she's writing one, and I will definitely read that. But it was a heavy topic about trauma and family and, cutting people out of her life that didn't serve her, and the boundaries that you have to set with that, like the strength that it requires to have is immense, and I commend her for that. But that was beautiful and so sad at the same time. And then I also watched Alex Cooper, the Call Her Daddy podcast. I don't watch a lot of her podcast episodes, just a few. If it's, lore about certain reality TV people that are on that I kind of want to hear more about, or drama in terms of that. But she made an episode about her pregnancy because she announced recently that she's pregnant. And again, while I don't really necessarily follow Alex Cooper, I watched that whole thing from start to finish. And again, I also cried watching that because it was so beautiful seeing somebody so excited to enter motherhood. And it again just reminded me of how strong women are and how incredible our bodies are. The fact that we can grow life for 9 months and also do so many things on top of that. Like, you're working full time, you are owning your own business, as Alex is, and she's like an incredible businesswoman for what she can accomplish in her life, also while bearing a child and going into this mother and nurturing role that we so naturally have, because it is our role as a human being in society. And biologically, that is what we're made to do. And I think it's so incredible that women can do that. And so it was a beautiful story that she shared. It was quite funny as well. And I will also tag that in the show notes if you care to check it out. I really enjoyed it. And I just love hearing about the excitement of other people and knowing that this is a new stage of life that will change them forever, but also create an experience that they could have never imagined before unless, they're in it. So I very much appreciated that, and that sat close to my heart and just made me think about my family and how excited I am for all the little ones that are entering into our world. And, you guys know I'm a godmother now, or going to be one very soon, and so I get to meet baby boy very soon. And then also my other cousin just had her first baby boy, so I can't wait to meet him and talk to her about all of that and just all the other little family members running about. I'm feeling very grateful and special that I have this life that I have and get to share it with these people. Let's dive into the actual episode. Everything that I said kind of leads into it, but I basically wanted to talk about how your sensitivity is a strength and how to kind of use your sensitivity as your superpower, because I very much look at my sensitive side as a superpower and something that I can use as my strength to move through the world with so much feeling. Of course, throughout today's episode, if something doesn't resonate with you, that is okay. You can just leave it. But if something does sit true with your heart and soul, I hope that you can take that. I hope that you can share it with somebody that, you care about in your life that you maybe think would resonate with it as well. And I appreciate you holding space as always for me as I share my thoughts and my opinions. It's not perfect, but I like to share what I feel, whether or not it makes sense when it comes out of my mouth, but I just like to open up conversation with you guys. And I also appreciate all your messages, because I do listen to them, or I do open them and receive them with grace, and knowing that I have people in my life that care about what I have to say. So yeah, appreciate you guys. I guess for those of you who don't know, I'm sure all of you who are listening do, but for those of you who don't, I consider myself a very highly sensitive person. I believe my friends and my family deeply know this about me. I am affected by pretty much everything around me, from what I watch on TV to in person experiences with strangers to changes in the weather and even my hormones, which are currently probably still out of balance, but we're getting on track, which is great. But that's all to say that every single thing basically affects me, and I feel so much at a level that is a bit hard to describe to those who maybe don't feel on that level. But it's funny because as I'm talking about that, I'm reminded of the fact that the other day, a few nights ago, I was sobbing on my couch by myself because I was scrolling through Instagram and I came across this reel of this man. His name is Sam, which I'll tag his in the show notes as well. But he has a stammer or a stutter. I think he calls it a stammer, and I don't know if there's a difference between a stutter and a stammer because truthfully, I didn't really look into it. But he posted a video of him ordering something from a fast food restaurant drive-through. And he didn't even do anything. Like, all he was doing was speaking and trying to process his words, but I don't know. There was something about the pauses he was taking and the fact that I knew or felt like he was trying so hard to have this fluent conversation. And then at the same time, the person on the receiving end who was taking his order, she was so patient and kind. I just lost it. It touched my heart so much. I followed him on Instagram after that, and I think his whole social media presence is about inspiring others and bringing light to his experience, in hopes that it helps other people who are in a similar situation feel seen. But I was so moved and emotional from it. I hope I can watch his other videos because I feel like I'm just going to cry from them. But I was so deeply empathetic towards him, and also the fact that it could have gone a different way. He could have recorded this and shed light on, his experience with ordering and how it can be challenging, but you can get through it. And it would have been so different if this woman on the receiving end was rude or impatient or made fun of him for his stammer. It would have been such a completely different tone to the video, and it would have made me even more upset. But I was crying because I was so empathetic to the fact that this human is so cute, and that, it reminded me that some people aren't kind toward them, or anybody in this world for that matter. We're not necessarily the nicest to each other, but the fact that this interaction was so kind and also patient and filled with what I thought was warmth. I also looked at the comments, and everyone was so supportive of him and just saying how proud of him they were, and it just melted my heart. And that is what we should be as a society, and as humanity needs to have love and to share love and create that love with each other. And we did that, at least in that video that I watched. And I think we need to continue to spread more of that love and kindness in the world. But anyway, I could go on and on about that. Point is that lots of things affect me. But for a really long time, I thought it was kind of a weird thing to feel so much. And I don't think my parents, when I was younger, really understood why I maybe cried so much when I did, or how to support me when I was feeling those ways, or what anxiety even was if I felt that way, because things were, environmental changes were affecting me. And growing up, I don't know that my peers really understood, because around them, like, part of me is very energetic and bouncy and loud, and I do feel like people found that to be a bit annoying or too much. And I've heard that a lot, where it's like, wow, that's a bit much, or it's so all consuming almost. And I don't know, I know now that that was just me being me and seeing the world for as colorful as it can be. But I didn't really necessarily understand it when I was younger, because not a lot of people did receive it in that way. And then also at the same time, when it rains, it pours for me. And knowing through this work in therapy, and also by diving into this journey I'm on to make myself the best version I can be, I know that, with all of these feelings that I've had in my life, like I always am and always was whole. That I am just being me, my authentic self, and the moments where I thought I was being too much when I was younger was a huge limiting belief that I was placing on myself because of the fact that, not everyone understood why I was feeling the way that I was feeling at that magnitude. So if what I'm saying so far is definitely hitting home to you, if you're like, wow, this is exactly how I feel so much all of the time, and it's hard to explain it to people who don't necessarily feel as strongly. Like, I feel you and I see you. But if you do feel similarly, I encourage you to listen to an episode by the podcast, The Psychology of Your 20s. I feel like I touched on this podcast way back when I first started my own podcast. But Gemma talks about the psychology aspect of a lot of different things in your 20s, things you could be feeling, this, that, and the third. Honestly, I just suggest you check out her page. It will make so much more sense from the actual author. But she has an episode, and it's episode 222, which is quite funny that they're angel numbers. And it was one of the best episodes I've probably listened to, especially at that time. I felt very heard and seen. But it's titled, Am I Too Sensitive? And it basically talked about the life of a highly sensitive person, how they can be misunderstood. And she just dove deep into the topic of highly sensitive people. And it truly made me feel, and I'm sure everybody else who listened as well, super seen and heard. She brought up the psychology behind it because she always does in every single episode. She does have science backed behind what she's saying, which I also appreciate. But it was a fascinating topic in general because I hadn't read a lot about highly sensitive people anyway. I think prior to this, I was reading a book about highly sensitive people, but it was only one thing that I've really read about. But it taught me a lot about myself and how I can use this gift that I possess as a superpower. And I think the main takeaway for me and why I want to share this topic with you guys is that being sensitive is a good thing. So I highly suggest you check out that episode. I will tag it in the show notes, but it very much tied into what I'm about to say here, which is like if you are sensitive or just anybody in the world, you don't have to be a highly sensitive person. The point is you're meant to feel feelings that come up. You're not meant to push or suppress them further into your own body because it's not, though I understand that sometimes our emotions are quite uncomfortable and it may seem easier to suppress, feelings are meant to be felt, and I do believe if you allow them to be seen, they won't feel as heavy as it would if you did suppress them inside of you. If you feel moved by some type of artwork that you saw or a dance you watched or feelings that came up when you saw a three-legged dog on the street, I don't know, or watching a video online that moved you and it was so random, like me just coming across this sweet man on my For You page, or anything that moves you. I just want to remind you that not a lot of people feel at that magnitude. And isn't it incredibly cool that you are moved by what someone else wouldn't even consider huge? Like, I think that's such a cool thing. And I truly see you for that. I also feel the pain that you can feel when you are feeling down. And I want you to know that I am here for you, that you're not alone in this world, that you're worthy of being exactly who you are, just as you are. And I do hope that you can continue to learn and lean into this part of you that is your sensitive side, because I believe it's a true gift and something worth celebrating and something worth also showing in the world. And if you are still on the fence of like, well, I feel so much, but people don't really understand, or I think it's weird, or it doesn't really fit into the norm, I am going to share a few things of what Psychology Today says about highly sensitive people and their characteristics, and how I think it's just going to reaffirm why being sensitive is such a positive thing and can be a superpower. And we'll kind of get into more details, as I took these different points, but highly sensitive people tend to experience pleasure more deeply, which in and of itself, I think is a very cool thing. I think the things that give you dopamine or this rush of endorphins, you just feel them more. Like, isn't that incredible? I would love to feel that euphoric feeling at that level, without anything to do that. I know that there are, psychedelics in the world and people like to experience that, and that's so cool if that's your life, but also I can experience that kind of euphoric sensation without any of that, just by being me. I think that that's just amazing. And also, like, on the romantic connection side, imagine you're a highly sensitive person and you connect with another human being. Like, I just feel like you feel things more at a different level. Doesn't that, like, wouldn't that feel so amazing? Yeah, I just love that. I love that you can experience pleasure more deeply. Highly sensitive people can be very empathetic, which is a trait that I absolutely know I possess. And I think it's a wonderful thing to have empathy, because not a lot of people can feel empathetic towards another person's situation. And for me, I would rather feel for the people around me over being apathetic. I don't know what it's like to not connect to the emotions of others. And while I think that there's a fine line of being empathetic and then taking on the emotion of other people, which isn't necessarily the best thing for you as a sensitive and empathetic person, I think it's an incredible trait and quality to have, to know that someone else, their pain, their happiness is something that you can also kind of experience as well in a way that is authentic and can create their experience better, or to make them feel heard and seen. I think that's a great quality to possess. But again, on top of that, I think that there's a fine line where you do need to have boundaries and kind of understand, this isn't my feeling that needs to overcome me solely. I can just feel it and I can just be happy or sad for this person, but not let it affect my choices in my life, if that makes sense. Highly sensitive people are, known to be more perceptive and aware of their surroundings. I think we tend to pick up on things within our environment quicker than other people. And I think this can be a very useful skill, part of your superpower. And, even in the workplace, the fact that you can embrace things in detail that others may not necessarily see right away is a very good thing to have. I feel like people tell me that I'm very detail oriented. I'm also very aware of my surroundings. Well, sometimes I'm not. I think if I'm in my own world, like listening to music or very much focused on something, I feel like sometimes I can like miss something around me, which probably isn't a great thing if I'm like walking outside by myself. Well, no. If I'm with my friends, I'm less like hyper aware of my surroundings, but the fact that I can like notice shifts in the environment, or I just notice changes about someone quite quickly, I think that that's a very cool trait to have. Like, you're just like quick on the draw, you're very receptive to things. I think that it makes you kind of, again, in the workplace, it's a useful skill to have where you can pick up on things and adapt quicker, if that makes sense. And, a fun side of being sensitive is that we can be very creative. And for me personally, I think that this is one of the hugest things and traits and qualities that you can possess, because I think creativity is what honestly makes the world go round. Like, without music, without art, without dance, without books, without poetry, without everything in this world, the gardens, flowers, full of all of the vibrant colors, our world would be so dull and gray and bland. And I think we want to live in a colorful world. Like, why would we want to sit in a colorless society? Why would we not want to have creativity or inspiration? And why wouldn't we want to be inspired to create for the simple pleasure of being more authentic? And so, whatever you feel is your way of expression, whether that is through movement, or if you enjoy playing video games, or you enjoy painting, or drawing, or designing, or knitting, or whatever it is, wearing clothes that make you feel like you and express your creative side, like keep doing that, because we need that diversity. And that is how we connect with one another, is through the creative process, because we're able to sit and connect and say, wow, you like this, I also enjoy that, have you thought about doing it this way, or can I show you my perspective on this experience and how I took this, and whatever it is. Like, that is such, we want to live in a diverse society, you know what I mean? And even last night, like, I got home and I was like, oh, I picked up some watercolor paint, because one of my friends and I, we went out for brunch yesterday morning, and she was talking about how she got some watercolor and we needed to go get more supplies from Michael's. And I was like, oh, I should do that. Like, that's so fun for my creative process. I don't need to, do this for anybody else, but I picked up some kids' watercolor paint, let me tell you, because it was cheaper, and also some paper. And like, I was painting last night while I was just watching my reality TV show, and it was really enjoyable. And without that, like, I could have just been sitting and, and just watching TV in itself, which is fine. But, I was able to express myself in another way. And why not? Like, this is literally what makes the world go round. And I think another takeaway that, I kind of want to share today is like, how can we actually use this sensitivity as our superpower? How can we move through the world with this strength? And honestly, I feel like, for me personally, it's helpful to know that I can use my sensitive side to help other people. I think that that's like one of my strengths that I have with it. And what I mean by that is, I can use this power that I have to be a good friend, to be a good listener, and to be a support system for other people. Well, where I can empathize and listen to what people in my life wish to share about theirs and their experiences. And even strangers, I have found, if I connect with a stranger and we share a moment with one another for a certain time, I do feel like they are able to open up to me in a way that, maybe a stranger not necessarily would to another stranger. And I think part of that is because hopefully I have the open energy to know that other people can feel safe, but it is just my authentic self of being sensitive. So I think I'm able to engage in a way that maybe not other strangers can. So I think that's a great power to have, is that you can be a good friend and a good support system to help one another, where you can empathize for a situation and be there for someone. And you can also allow your sensitivity to bleed into every single area of your life to bring that extra vibrancy. Meaning, like, for me, I can fill my cup and do things that bring light to my life. And I can create a life that feels fulfilling and amplifies the peace and serenity I do feel when I am feeling the warm and happy feelings. And so, same thing with you. Like, you can use your sensitivity to be as creative as you want to be, to pour into different avenues in your life in which you want to continue to amplify the good feelings that you have, because it will create peace in your life and it will allow you to feel fulfilled. And I think we chase that feeling. I think we want to have a purpose in life. I think we want to do things that make us feel good and wanted and valued in the world, whether that's externally from other people or internally from yourself. But I think it does start with you. So doing things in your life that make you happy, doing things that sit right with your soul and feel true to what you believe and what your values are, just that sensitivity plays into every single avenue, because you can feel so much. And it'll just, I think, help you make choices in your daily life that lead to a world where you do feel more fulfilled and more valued within yourself. That's kind of what I have for you today on this topic, guys. I hope that with all of that, it makes you feel more seen and heard. And even just for the few minutes, I hope that it makes you understand that as I'm opening up about my sensitive side, that it is absolutely not a negative thing to hold. I think it's a very positive thing. And while maybe when you were younger, you may not have understood it, other people may not understand, and other people still may not understand, but it's not really for others to understand. This is about you and how you're living your life. And it's important to move through the world in a way that makes you feel happy and makes you feel good inside and out. And so I want you to just continue to be yourself, because it is the best version of you that you can be, and open up more and understand that your vulnerable side and the side of you to, if you are feeling more emotional, it's okay. Let it all out. I don't think the right people in your life will judge you for it, and people who may not understand, and maybe outwardly, if they ever give you a difficult time for it, remember, it's not about you, it's about them and their own experience. And for me personally, I would rather live a life filled with emotion and, things that I see and consume that make me feel so happy that I cry, and also make me feel so sad that I cry. I would rather live that life knowing that I can feel so much, over a life where I'm suppressing all of that feeling because it's an uncomfortable feeling. I'd very much rather do the foregoing of that, of those two. But I hope that you can take something from today's episode. I hope you feel seen and heard, because you are. I hope that you find moments of gratitude in your life and day for just being you, because it is very special to be you. And I just want to allow yourself to be. And I hope that your week is filled with endless opportunities of joy and love and light. I'm sending all of that incredible energy to you, so I hope that you feel it. And I definitely feel like we can dive into this topic more. I feel like there's so much to say, at least from my own experience, about being a highly sensitive person and the experiences that I've had in my life. And I definitely do, if you guys liked today's episode, I definitely do want to share more, because I hope that sharing my personal experiences help you, again, feel heard and seen. But yeah, let me know what you took from today, and I would love to talk about more of the sensitive side. I think that there's so many different avenues I can go down with it, and it was really nice to open up to you and to be vulnerable, and to know that I have a safe space to do so, and that it will be well received from each of you. And yeah, for that, I very much appreciate your time and all the love that you show me and the support. But anyway, all these outros are so long. I just love to yap. You guys know. But I'm so excited after today, or after this episode. Like I said, I'm going to meal prep now, and then I'm going to lay and tan. And I can't wait to update you guys on my past week, whatever that may bring. And I can't wait to hear about yours. And I just hope that everything you experienced this week is full of love and light. And yeah, I will talk to you guys super soon. Lots of love. Bye.